I'm joined with John Proust from Japan Gold here at the Precious Metals Summit at Beaver Creek. John, thanks for joining us.
I'm glad to be with you this morning.
So, John, I think you guys are incredibly unique because you are the first junior mining company I've seen that is searching for gold in Japan. So what can you tell us?
Well, we're searching for gold in Japan, but fortunately for us, there's a rich history of high-grade gold mining in Japan that goes back for almost 500 years. The interesting aspects of our business are that gold mining industry was really put on hold in 1943 during the middle of the Second World War, when the government put a moratorium on gold mining in Japan and closed 76 gold mines. After the war, really only a handful reopened, and so today we assess over 60 gold mines that have never been reopened since the Second World War. The period after the Second World War was a very quiet period because the mining companies were incented by the government to go abroad and bring natural resources back to Japan. The opportunity of exploring in Japan really stopped. When you fast forward a number of years later, after after the universities had closed a number of the geology departments at all the universities except one, and had really stopped domestic exploration, there was an accidental discovery in 1981. The Geological Survey, the Metal Mining Agency of Japan, who would do sort of scientific tests relating to the country, drilled a vertical drill hole to measure the thickness of the young volcanic rocks. These are volcanic islands. And they just drilled 200 meters to the basement. And there they discovered what is today the highest grade Tier 1 gold mine in the world, the Hishikari gold mine. It's a Sumitomo metal mining asset. So that, for an explorer, that gets someone very excited. But it didn't excite Japan to the point where they started, a fantastic resurgence of their gold mining industry. In 2012, the government changed the Mining Act to actually allow foreign companies to come in. So I think people had heard about Hishikari, but there was no opportunity for foreign companies to come in.
So that never went into production?
Oh, no, Hishikari went into production.
Okay.
It was discovered in 1981,
okay.
Went into production in 1985. Okay. And again, it's a Sumitomo metal mining asset. It's a 13 million ounce plus ore body.
Wow.
They've already mined 8.6 million ounces, okay. But the average grade is 30 to 40 grams per ton.
Wow.
And their all-in sustaining costs are extremely low in the $500 per ounce.
Yeah,
range.
That's pretty high grade.
Very high grade and a very low all-in sustaining cost.
Yeah.
So a remarkable asset. And we're there to try and replicate that by restarting the industry.
What kind of widths are we talking?
So the Hishikari is a low sulfidation epithermal gold deposit. It's white quartz veins that range from about 1/2 meter wide to about 4 meters plus wide. There's 40 veins. They're very shallow. They're at about 200 meters to 300 meters. So in Hishikari's case, they just blast the vein material, they bring it up a ramp to the surface, they sort it, and then they just do some light crushing of the material, but basically send it directly to their smelter. And so the quartz or silica is the flux in a smelting process. So the waste of a gold mine is actually valuable in the smelting process. You can stream the gold off. Wow. And that's why there's low all-in sustaining costs.
So is Sumitomo the only company that's mining for gold right now?
That's the only gold mine in Japan today.
Wow.
There's only one gold mine in Japan today. But again, this incredible legacy of historical gold mining.
So how many other companies then are exploring for gold in Japan?
So interesting. So we were the first company in the world to go there in 2012 when the government changed the Mining Act, and we were the only company. So we were there by ourselves for 4.5 years before another company came in. Mm-hmm. And in that 4.5 years, we did a couple of things. We studied all the closed mines, and we looked at the same style of mineralization as the Hishikari gold mine. So that seemed like definitely the way for us to go. In addition to that, we helped the government design the permitting process by providing input of how it was done globally to give them a good start at that. And they came up with a very robust permitting process. So that took 2 years of the 4.5. So after that, then we started to apply for all the key areas that we felt in Japan were prospective. And so we got a huge head start as the first mover. 2 other little junior companies kind of came in afterwards, but they've really not been very active because frankly, there are just a handful of gold districts in Japan, and we dominate those districts.
Yeah, it's something I find kind of comical about the junior mining industry is that if we mention that we're chatting with Japan Gold to some of our friends who work in the business or our geos, and obviously they're not involved, they kind of roll their eyes like, oh, that's never going to get to production. But then I look at this here and I see that you got two pretty major companies involved, and they don't seem to think it's a stupid idea.
Well, that's right, and you know, de-risking these opportunities. You're right on. You're right on with that. I mean, the first thing I would say is, I mean, Hishikari was discovered in '81. It was in production by '85. So, you know, that's a very short period of time. We're very fortunate that we have the two largest gold miners in the world on our register. Newmont is a 9% stakeholder in our business. But in 2020, we really thought we've managed to assemble this incredible portfolio. There's very low holding costs. But what we need to do is we need to bring in a partner. So we had a competition, and 3 companies competed: Newmont, Newcrest, and Barrick.
Wow. And
we selected Barrick to be our partner.
Yes.
Barrick came in and then took 2.5 years to screen our portfolio, and they selected 3 of our projects that they feel have the potential to host a Tier 1 or Tier 2 ore body. Yeah. Tier 1 being a 5 million ounce ore body that can produce 500,000 ounces a year for 10 years or greater, and 3 million ounces for Tier 2, 300,000 ounces a year for 10 years. So they see 3 projects that look just like that. And interestingly enough, we've completed, of course, that screening, and we're now moving into the very important and exciting drill phase, which is drilling and drilling for discovery.
Now, an obvious question I think we've got to ask is, how challenging has it been to work with the Japanese government to get drill permits? And
Sure, absolutely. The Japanese government, first of all, changed the Mining Act to invite us there. Okay. And they've been completely open and accessible, right to the heads of the departments, the heads of the various stakeholders that we need to get to advance our projects. Initially, in the early days, they hadn't done it before, so there was a period of time where we were really working with them very closely and educating them on how it was done elsewhere. But as we got more, familiar with that, and they got more familiar with what we were doing, the process picked up. So we're, from a timing standpoint, it's as globally competitive as any other major jurisdiction. And we've been really fortunate that they are very involved. We interact with the government all the time. I'm there next week for the next 2 weeks, meeting with the heads of major, bureaus or organizations throughout the government, stakeholders, to advance drilling permits on other projects.
So what's the long-term vision for the company? Do you see Japan Gold being a producer? Is it to kind of get those projects to the stage where the majors want to take them over? Sure. Where do you see this company in 10 years? So
we have 2 parts to our business. The Barrick projects that are being advanced are very exciting. Those are fully funded by Barrick. And we're the operator, but they're fully funded by Barrick. And Barrick only earns an interest when they complete a pre-feasibility study. They get 51% of a project. When they complete and fully fund a bankable feasibility study, they get a 75% interest. So we're carried right through bankable feasibility, and then we have to come up with our funds to build the mine, our 25%. So that's really got Barrick moving along well. What's happened recently, and this is a real step change for our company, is that 6 months ago, I brought in a president and chief operating officer. Now, I mentioned earlier that 3 companies competed to get into Japan with us: Newmont, Newcrest, and Barrick. Recently, as you may know, Newmont acquired Newcrest, and the head of global exploration for Newcrest was very engaged with Japan and really wanted to participate with us. We encouraged him to leave Newmont, the new Newmont Newcrest, and he's joined us as our president and chief operating officer. That's Fraser McCorkadale. Now, Fraser has an enormous amount of experience. He's looked at 300 deposits around the world in the last 8 years. He's been with Newcrest for 27 years and is leading our discovery team. So that's sort of the next phase of the project portfolio that Barrick is not advancing. We have 23 independent projects that we're advancing now. What do you do with those projects? Well, the first thing we did is we screened those projects, and we made sure that they all had the style of target that we're looking for. Our minimum target is 1 million ounces at 7 grams. So that's what we're looking for, is 1 million ounces at 7 grams. The 23 projects that we have independently, we feel all have that potential. Now what we're doing is Fraser's bringing together a group of subject matter experts, global leaders in geology, geophysics, epithermal systems, etc., to really focus in on Japan and the area around the Hishikari mine. Because we surround the Hishikari mine and we now have 84% of all prospective ground in the region, and it really hasn't been explored. So we're bringing new models, new ideas, and some of the best people in the world to help us advance that area as well.
So, John, something I like to ask companies is if I'm a long investor and I like your story, and I'm thinking about risk here, what's my big risk in investing in Japan Gold?
Great question. And I think about risk all the time. And so for me, it's all about de-risking, first of all. So whenever I look at a project, and Japan Gold is a classic, I say to myself, well, does it have the ingredients that I'm looking for? High-grade gold versus low-grade gold. Is it in a safe geopolitical jurisdiction? Yes, it is. Has it had a history of high-grade gold mining? Yes, it has. Is it underexplored? Absolutely, since 1943. So it checks all those boxes. But then I go further and I say, who smarter than us has actually looked at this and has done, it's met their screens. And when we've got the two largest gold miners in the world participating with us, and we've got 60% of our company's shares held by 12 of the largest institutions in the world, they've done their own review and due diligence. I think that really de-risks the whole aspect. The biggest risks in Japan really, I think, have been a perception of lack of focus. Because when you have a huge portfolio, that can be perceived as a lack of focus. But for us, it was part of a very strategic plan that we knew if we were first movers, we could pick up all the best pieces of ground, and then we could slowly bring that portfolio, we can fine tune that portfolio to get to the targets we want. And that's what we're doing now. So we're beating those risks.
Okay, so John, last question for you. If I am an investor watching the story, or I got you on my watch list, what am I looking out for over the remainder of the year?
Yeah, no, it's going to be a really amazing time for investors now. We're trading at an all-time low given the junior markets and just the attention that's being paid to the junior gold exploration industry. But to give you a perspective, first of all, to set the stage, with ourselves and with Barrick, we've spent $90 million in Japan building this enterprise. Our market capitalization today is 15 million. Mm-hmm. So a fraction of what's gone into Japan to build the enterprise. Exploration companies are kind of boring for investors, and I'm sure you know this yourself as an investor, where more sampling, more geophysics, people start to kind of lose focus. But it's really drilling that really draws the attention to it. We are starting this Friday, drilling the first of 3 Barrick's projects. Okay. In total, we see 5 or 6 targets that have been vetted by Barrick that we are now going to drill test. We're drilling for discovery, and that's starting this Friday, and we're going to be doing one project after another over the next 5 or 6 months. So you're going to see, I'd say, certainly results before Christmas from the first project, and more news as we advance the other projects. In addition to that, then you've got Fraser McCorkadale and his team, and how they're advancing the area around the Hishikari mine and what the thesis is there, and what's going to propel the discoveries there and advancing our drill targets there. So it's going to be a really busy time, an exciting time to be involved.
So we're going to get to a point where there's going to be regular drill results rolling out.
Very regular drill results. And we're really fortunate. We use ALS in North Vancouver as our lab. We know them well. We get great turnaround time, and we can visit them if we're in Vancouver, if we're not in our office in Tokyo.
Well, John, I think that, and I'm not just saying this because you're sitting in front of me, I think that this is one of the most interesting stories here at Beaver Creek. And I was saying this to you pre-interview. When you are uniquely positioned, there's nobody doing quite anything like what you're doing. It puts you in a very interesting spot. And I think we're going to be watching you guys closely over the coming quarters to see how these results roll out. And I wish you guys success, and I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us.
My pleasure. I appreciate your interest in Japan Gold. Thank you.